Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash Season 6. So later this week we will be on the the home stretch, I guess you could call it, to Crisis on Infinite Earths, with no more breaks for The Flash as well as Arrow until Crisis begins and the wrath and the force of the Anti-Monitor is brought upon not just the heroes we hang out with every week, but the entire multiverse. Now Supergirl and Batwoman have a break. I think it's either the week before Crisis or the week before that. But yeah, with Flash and Arrow, it's, full steam ahead to the insanity that lies ahead. Now in this video we're going to go over a bunch of stuff relating to just Flash Season 6 just as it is, as well as Crisis on Infinite Earths that relates to the Flash, if that makes sense. So about 4 pieces of stuff. But of course throughout the video it would be awesome if you could let me know all of your various opinions, theories, all of that in the comment section down below. Excited to see what you guys have to say, especially on like 1 or 2 of the things we go over. And of course if you're going to enjoy the video and any of this stuff gets you excited, why not drop a like on the video to show support and hype. But the first thing I want to go over is a question, and I guess just a topic in general that has been brought up, constantly, I guess you could say, throughout this season, while Crisis was filming, and also I'm sure will be brought up until Crisis is done, and that is around Reverse Flash and whether or not he will be in the Crisis on Infinite Earths event. Now, since season 1 of The Flash, and as further things have played out in the show since then, the Crisis event that we were teased was sort of built up around Barry vanishing, around an altercation with the Reverse Flash. Now, in the newspaper articles that have been presented to us, we were logically led to assume, might I add, that Reverse Flash would sort of like taunt Barry, I guess you could say, or even make a threat to Barry, resulting in Reverse Flash running away through the Speed Force only to be chased by Barry. But that Barry that runs away with him would never return from wherever they might go. Now this would lead them to the night of Nora Allen's murder. Of course, Reverse Flash originally planned to kill Barry, but of course we know what happened there. So that was meant to be like sort of the sort of like the birth of what ends up being this entire show, if that makes sense. Now, we were all wondering whether we were going to see this happen in the Crisis event, maybe not Barry vanishing per se, but that whole scenario of going back to that night in question. And I think before episode 1 of this season, you could say yes to all that. I think most of us would have been on board for it, but episode 1 and 2 of this season sort of insinuate that all of the Flash versus Reverse Flash stuff in Crisis will be, just scrapped, or at least demoted to a side piece rather than anything of any real focus, and I guess unfortunately importance. And it is like the cosmic battle side of the crossover that has taken importance, which is sort of obvious, considering the villain, the Anti-Monitor. Now, it was said at Comic-Con, from memory at least, that Tom Cavanagh would be playing Reverse Flash again this season. I'm not 100% sure if they specifically said Crisis, so I'm not going to act as if they did specifically say that. But they said this season from memory. Now, that means he could be in Crisis. The Crisis is this season, but it will be the Wells-looking version, when really it should be the proper version of Reverse Flash that shows up, the Matt Letcher version, considering the events that should play out. Though it is important to remember that at the end of last season, when we last saw Reverse Flash, he said he would, see him soon. He might even mention Crisis from memory, but obviously that was a bit of a setup for what was going to happen, next time, insinuating that he was going to be in the Crisis crossover. So you got to take that into account. But once again, that was the Wells-looking version, so that might be the gateway into making it that the Wells-looking version can fit into there and it makes sense, even if they go about repeating the actions that the normal-looking Eobard Thawne, did. So now we have heard there are many surprise appearances that haven't been announced or leaked, and I can tell you that there actually wasn't that much Crisis stuff filmed in public that we got to see, in comparison to what will actually be in the event. I'd say like maybe 5%, maybe a tiny bit closer to 10% if you want to be a bit more lenient. So Reverse Flash and Crisis could still be a strong possibility because they just could have filmed it either in private or, in an indoor area. The question is whether like what we want to happen in Crisis with him and the Flash actually happens, that whole, traveling back to that night in question, because that is the thing that seems like it could be less likely and not happen, but that's for us to wait and find out. I know, we'll have to wait and see. But back to present day and what's coming up this week, we of course have episode 6, which is going to be a James Bond style episode, or at least, inspired episode, with Barry and Ralph heading to Midway City. That looks like it will be, like incorporating some black hole stuff, which is, for those that don't know yet, the organization that hasn't been named on the show as of yet, but is the organization that took Esperanza Gomez, aka Ultraviolet, who we did meet in episode 2, and who will also be appearing in episode 6 this week and taking on the Flash and Elongated Man again. It will be interesting to see if there is any major setup for Black Hole, or if it is just some more like seed planting, I guess you could say, as it does seem in episode 7 at least there could be more setup for that storyline that should play out in the back half of the season. But in this episode you should expect some setup for the the two-part finale starting in episode 7, of course, with that setup being around Ramsey Rosso and his Bloodwork arc. I have actually sort of been surprised that he hasn't been the focus of every episode, maybe bar one episode this season. He has been used very sparingly. So let's hope episode 7 and 8 are jam-packed and that episode 6 sets it up fairly well. But speaking of that two-part finale, we of course went over some stuff regarding episode 7 earlier in the week, which is the first part of that, two-part finale with some promo images and a synopsis for that episode. I will leave that video linked in the description down below if you want to go check it out, because I'm not going to repeat it here. But right now we actually have the synopsis for episode 8, the mid-season finale, and the finale for the Bloodwork arc, and if it needs to be said, the last episode of The Flash before Crisis on Infinite Earths kicks off. Now the episode is entitled The Last Temptation of Barry Allen Part 2, which makes sense seeing that episode 7 was labelled as Part 1 of that. But here is the synopsis or description for that episode. With the Flash freshly infected by the monstrous Bloodwork, Iris and Cisco battle to help Barry take control of himself before he's lost forever to Ramsey's influence. Meanwhile, the rest of Team Flash fight to reclaim control of Central City from Bloodwork's growing army. So firstly, Flash getting infected by the monstrous Bloodwork. This will see us see a version of the Negative Flash, or the Barry Allen version of Negative Flash. It's going to be pretty cool. From set photos, at least, it looks very comic accurate. I'm sure, in post with CGI, they might add little details and make it look a bit better. Maybe he flickers black lightning and stuff like that. I think it looked better when we actually see it in the actual episode, which makes sense. Now, once again, this could be set up for the back half, possibly because in the comics there is Negative Flash as Barry, but then this Negative Flash becomes someone else. I'll just say it's Mina Darwan. It'll be interesting to see if that character does get introduced, or maybe they try and twist it a bit. Maybe it's another character that we might meet in the back half, or that we might even meet in this couple of episodes that becomes Negative Flash. Who knows? Ultraviolet might become Negative Flash or something. She has a very speedster-looking outfit already, so I guess they can make her Negative Flash if they wanted to, or it could maybe even be someone that's already like a meta that's already under the control of Black Hole that maybe becomes Negative Flash, and just some stuff around Ramsey and Barry and this whole altercation might lead to that building up a bit more. I guess we'll have to wait and see in regards to that. But I would expect that whole Negative Flash thing to play out further rather than just this episode, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, Iris and Cisco are trying to help Barry take control. Now, I'm guessing that Iris is just there emotionally Barry, listen, it's me, Iris. I'm guessing that's pretty much what's going to happen there. We've seen it, happen in the past. I'm guessing that's what's going to happen there. And then Cisco will be there, technologically wise, because I think from memory from said photos, he has a weapon of sorts. I think it looked like a gun or something, one of sort of the guns that they always build on the show that has a specific purpose. It might be something to try and fight the infection that's taking over Barry. Maybe whether he shoots at a Barry or he has to get close enough and it just changes the infection, something along those lines. But Cisco has some sort of weapon of sorts. Have to wait and see how it plays out. Now, obviously, this is a two-parter finale. This is the last part, and in part 1, Iris seems to be doing something that's completely disconnected to what is happening with the Barry, or at least the episode 7 synopsis sort of suggests that. It suggests that Iris is maybe doing some stuff around Black Hole and maybe diving it deeper into that, or something along those lines. Nothing really connected to Ramsey. And seeing it's a two-parter, things usually move fairly quickly, so it will be interesting to see how they quickly get Iris involved in this. But then again, I don't think Cisco's really doing anything specifically with Barry. I think mainly it's just Barry's with Ramsey because it's in some weird sort of trippy thing. So maybe Cisco's helping Iris there, and then it just sort of segments and they meet up, and then they're all of a sudden encountering this weird version of Barry. So that might be how things play out, because Cisco is not mentioned in the episode 7 synopsis at all, so he could be with Iris throughout that episode. Now, the rest of Team Flash is fighting to reclaim control of Central City from Bloodwork's army. Now, I'm guessing this is going to be a very overpowered army. You would assume that because Ramsey would be much, much stronger in this episode. And we already saw an example of it in the hospital when he basically killed those patients and made them rise up again. They were pretty powerful then. So imagine if Ramsey can pretty much take over a whole city like that. Or at least imagine if he could raise people from the graves and stuff like that. Like a necromancer or something like that. That'd be pretty interesting if they went down that route. But this should be pretty interesting to see how big they go with it. I guess another interesting thing would be whether the people that are sort of like taken over by Ramsay, whether they die, like the ones in the hospital did, or they have to be dead to be resurrected. And if once like Ramsay loses connection with them, they like turn to mush, like we saw in that episode in the hospital. Because if that's the case, a lot of people are going to die. And also, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe we see a handful of characters, or at least maybe one character that we're used to seeing get taken control of as well by Ramsay. That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if they went down that route as well. I'd say they'd come up with some sort of solution where people don't die. Like the ones that are alive and then taken over by Ramsay won't die. Like if they're already dead, then they'll probably stay dead. But if they were alive and then Ramsay took control of them, I'm sure the team will find out some way to keep them alive. But we know there will be a Killer Frost and Elongated Man versus Bloodwork fight. I think it's in episode 8. I think it's in episode 8. I don't think it's in episode 7. I think it's meant to be in episode 8. But then again, it might be in episode 7. I have no idea. They filmed this two-parter really like back to back. And I think even they swapped some scenes around. Like some scenes of episode 8 would have been filmed like mainly when they're doing episode 7 stuff and vice versa. So it's sort of hard to tell what scenes lie in what episode, if that makes sense. But in regards to the back half, as I said, this is like the mid-season finale. It's the episode before Crisis, but it's the last like proper Flash episode, I guess you could say, in the first half. Like Crisis doesn't necessarily count. So you'd expect some setup for the back half, even though Crisis is there, and you might say, well, what's the point of setting some stuff up there if Crisis is going to like change some stuff up as well? I'm sure they'll plant some seeds, if not completely like show the seed opening up and the flower starting to grow. I'd expect that just with Black Hole, but there might even be some stuff there with maybe like Nash Wells, even maybe Iris as well, for stuff that they want to do in the back half with certain characters. But I don't think they'll do too much just because of the mid-season finale. But then again, it is important to remember that last season we had the mid-season finale and then Elseworlds, and they still set up some stuff in that episode as well. So they can still set some stuff up. I think the issue is just like, oh, well, with Crisis, should they bother with that? But maybe they're insinuating that Crisis won't affect as much as we're thinking. But that's for us to wait and, I guess, experience during the crossover. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all to go over. If you enjoyed the video, it would be awesome if you could drop a like on the show. So let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on what we went over, your various theories, thoughts on Reverse Flash and Crisis. Do you think it's going to happen? And any of the episode 8 stuff as well. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.